I don't want to work with an agency. I don't want it to feel like that. I want to work with people who are an extension of my team who I can have a conversation with and pick up the phone and call and, just have a normal dynamic with.
This is You Should Talk To, a podcast for busy marketing leaders who are looking for support and tips on getting shit done. In each episode, Daniel Weiner interviews marketing leaders and discusses their experience, successes, and failures around hiring agencies. If you're interested in finding and choosing the right agency partner, then let's jump in.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the You Should Talk To podcast, our first one of 2024. This podcast is currently brought to you by myself and You Should Talk To. You Should Talk To pairs brands and marketers for free with vetted agencies and or freelancers because finding great agencies is a pain. It takes a lot of time as well. I am super excited today to be joined by Kacie Jenkins, who is SVP of Marketing at Sendoso. Kacie, how are we?
Doing very well, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
You told me before we started recording that you're dealing with quite the weather issues. So if that takes over and this is your final podcast, this will be your farewell to the world. So hopefully that doesn't happen.
I'll try not to blow away while we're talking.
That is good. Well, let's jump right in. What is an unpopular opinion or a hot take of sorts that you have in the marketing world in general?
I think my current beliefs around AI may be a hot take, not sure. What we do at Sendoso is help folks create authentic moments of connection between each other. And I am currently of the belief that that can be done in a non-manual, fully handcrafted way. I think that there are great AI-enhanced ways to forge authentic connection between humans. A lot of people on LinkedIn I've seen, talking about how AI erodes the connection between people. And I think there are certainly ways that you can use it that actually do degrade human connection. But I think that if you're strategic and thoughtful about how you're interacting with other folks, there are a lot of ways that you can use AI and automation that actually improve the way that you connect with another person.
What's like one great example of that, if you can think of one off the top of your head?
So what we're doing right now is using every tool at our disposal to kind of test this and also building it into our product. And I don't want to get too Sendoso-y here, but one of the ways we are doing this is
you can get a little Sendoso-y. You can get a little
okay.
Sendoso here.
All right. So we are building this into our product so that if I wanted to send something to you, Daniel, I would be able to, instead of doing all of the work myself manually and going around and hunting and trying to figure out what you like and comments you've left, we've actually built it in so that I can kind of partner with the AI so that, I know I want to send to you and I may know why. It's your birthday, it's your anniversary, it's something. And it will actually do some of that hunting for me, pull together all of the information it can find based on anything you've done on the internet and anything that's available. And it will actually suggest things that might make sense for you based on, you like tennis, you like bicycles, you like whatever. You have 9 cats. I don't know. I need to do my homework better.
You've got my entire background behind you, so.
Nailed it.
I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. How did you know that?
How does she know? Yeah, so it'll do that, and then it'll actually craft a message for you based on the gift and the situation that you can then edit, right, if you want, and tweak. So it'll just save you some of that time without fully replacing the human. And then you can do that at massive scale. So we're doing this with programmatic outbound, where we're looking at thousands and thousands of target accounts, and we're trying to figure out how to automatically personalize the outreach to each of those people based on where they are in the world and how many cats they have and what's important to them. And it's actually working better than I ever expected. I bet against this, thinking that it would not work well in the beginning of our experiment, and we're getting fan mail in a lot of cases saying this is the best outbound I've ever received.
It's amazing. I can make it even easier for you. You don't even need AI. I like really bougie travel and food. So high end.
Noted.
Yeah. So you don't even need AI to buy me a gift. But no, it is truly amazing. I am big into gifting that does not scale, I would say. As a solopreneur, it is hard to scale anything as one person. But no, that's super
Yes.
interesting. It kind of leads into the next thing. I was going to ask you about Sendoso here, but you've been B2C, you've been both, and B2B as well, I would say. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and what I'm really interested in? For folks who've been on B2C and B2B, one of my hot takes is it's all kind of the same. I don't think B2B and B2C is like the world's most different types of marketing. So I'm interested to hear about your experience with both, and if you have any insight into if there are crazy differences in consumer behavior on both sides.
It's a really good question. I'd say I agree with you. I don't think we're all people, just humans, right? I
Sure.
think B2B has suffered from trying to treat people in a less personal and human way for a long time. Sort of got into these grooves of like crappy white papers and, very heavily product focused, formal language and boring, generic, and in often cases like, we're looking at big swaths of people and trying to treat them all as the same because they have the same title or, that they're the same type of buyer or, we're just reducing everyone to an ICP, our ideal customer profile. I have worked across consumer tech, so I worked at Roku. I've worked in hospitality for a really large hospitality group where we ran hotels and restaurants and bars. And I've also worked in sort of deep tech marketing to developers who are building the entire and supporting the entire internet. And there's not that much difference, honestly. There's difference in the way that people want to be interacted with online. Developers who are building the internet are very busy. They don't like to feel marketed to, but do you like to feel marketed to, Daniel? Like, I don't. I don't like to feel like someone's trying to manipulate or sell me on something. So I think, my take on that would be B2B is sort of catching up to consumer marketing, and we're learning from the idea that it can be entertaining as well as informative and valuable and educational. It doesn't have to be bland and boring. And we're seeing this sort of rise of influencer and content creator marketing where we're collaborating with folks who are operators, who are leaders, who are practitioners, who understand this stuff to create templates and actionable content that you could take and actually apply. That's not dry and boring and is not gated behind some form. And it's like this whole B2B version of the internet has sort of become outdated, and we're taking it and tossing it and going, tear down the gates, like just be useful and helpful and kind and thoughtful. And, people want to buy from people and they don't want to buy from your brand. So your brand page is never going to on LinkedIn get as much traction as your people do. This is consumer marketing, right? Like you're just trying to find what resonates with people.
Yeah, I also don't want to get marketed to. The only thing I do enjoy, which some people I think still hate, is I'm a walking Instagram ad at the moment. The pants I have on are from an Instagram ad. The shoes I have on are from an Instagram ad. And they're real. And I've found new brands that have become my brands because presumably some marketer did some targeting that said, Danny will buy this. And they were 100% correct. So I think nobody wants to be marketed to when they don't like the product, or if they're not interested in the product potentially, and it seems like out of place, or truthfully to your point, nobody wants to be like sold to. They want to be, informed more than sold. Like it doesn't need to feel transactional. You can still eventually make a sale. I guess in my world, I find it agencies just don't think of the long game. They want to get in with a brand and make a sale in 20 minutes versus like hanging around for a little bit, and everybody's impatient. So I think that's the plight of a lot of marketers because they're given, here are your goals, and they're oftentimes short-term goals versus long-term goals.
Yes. Yes. It's the difference between, so when I joined Sendoso, we were doing the sort of near term heavy lead gen, heavy emphasis on volume of leads who were not ready to buy. And in many cases, had just been scanned at a booth and didn't even know why someone was reaching out to them. It's the difference between that and like trying to send everyone straight to a demo request or a sales call and knowing right time, right place, right way to interact so that someone feels like they're not being sold to, they're actually just experiencing something that's useful to them in the moment. And I buy from Instagram too. I buy from Instagram. I shop for agencies and for tools out of my dark social groups, and look for peers who have been through similar challenges. Same way I look at, is there someone sort of similar to me wearing something that seems like it might look good on me, and they're not selling it to me, but I see it and I realize that maybe that would work for me. It's not the hard sell, right? It's the right thing, right time. There's some element of, I think, trust also that gets built over time if you're seeing stuff on Instagram or you're following someone that like stuff about them and resonate with them.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just a different way of selling.
Yeah, you brought up shopping for agencies via your circles and dark social and stuff like that. Most of the folks that I chat with are CMOs and VPs are getting hit up 100 times a day by agencies who want to, of course, do business with them and pitch their services and stuff like that, which in my world is not the way to get in with most companies. I'm curious if you could give a PSA of sorts to agencies out there. Mine is usually just chill out or chill the fuck out, if I'm being honest. I'm curious what yours is to folks like that, because I'm guessing you were getting hit up a bunch because of your title.
I get hit up a bunch. Please,
they just assume you've got millions of dollars to spend,
They do. Please stop pitch slapping people, is my number one. Please stop saying, like, hey, I'd love to connect with you, and then instantly hitting us with like, please buy this thing that I sell, or please go check out blah, blah, blah thing about my agency. I could help you. Let's get on a call. I don't want to get on a call with you. I don't know you. I don't trust you. I don't even maybe have budget for the thing you're selling. If you just connected with me and were useful or helpful or kind, that would go so much further. And that is the near term versus long term thinking that we're talking about here. The other thing I would say is, if someone I trust tells me that you're great, that goes so much infinitely further than you trying to hard sell me cold. And so look at your existing clients and customers and how powerful word of mouth is for this type of selling, and do everything you possibly can to make sure that they love you enough to advocate for you down the line or to become a reference customer. That's the best possible way to spread like good, positive marketing words about your business.
No, I agree. What's your advice to CMOs and VPs of marketing, other marketing leaders in your world and beyond, on how to, I would say, survive this year a little bit? I think 2024 hasn't started off as rosy as some were hoping. There's still layoffs and things of that nature. The world, at least that I deal in, seems a little wonkier than usual. What's your advice to other marketing leaders?
I think it's been a really tough year, and
we're only a month in. That's not good.
Well, my fiscal year started on the 1st of February, so I'm just kicking off here to a new one. But
welcome.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I think we're stronger together. I am learning that the more I open up and talk to my peers and folks like me, the more I learn and the stronger I get. I think the biggest struggle we face really is what you touched on earlier, which is we're being really, really push hard to deliver short-term results. And, in every position I've ever been in leading marketing, the question has always been, how do you make these big leaps from where you are to where we need you to be? And how do you generate, significantly more pipeline in the near term? And marketing doesn't necessarily work like that. And so I guess my counsel to both myself and to all of my peers is set very clear, realistic expectations. Don't stack risks. So don't, and I read this recently, someone posted about this on LinkedIn. If you're experimenting with new things and you don't necessarily know exactly how they're going to play out, don't stack on top of each other a bunch of new experiments or channels and then bet your quarter on it, because that's a real risky thing for you to do. And also just be comfortable setting the boundary and holding it about what's realistic. Don't overpromise and overcommit and oversell what your team and you can deliver, because that puts you in the desperate position where you're gonna feel compelled to do things you don't believe in near term to try and make miracles happen. And that's when we get in trouble as marketers, when we get in that struggle position of we got to close the gap, and we think maybe if we just did this, or if we just gated that, or if we just bought this list, or if we just did this other horrible behavior, we would hit the goal. It's just a slippery slope.
I feel like buying the list is never the answer. Things have gone awry
Never.
if that's the end of the conversation. Hey, let's just buy the list. I feel like that's never a good thing
Just,
in 2024.
you get to a point where, leadership is like, well, what if you did this? Well, what if you tried that? What if you did this? Have you done that?
I think that's why I feel for marketers a lot, because with the amount of conversations I have, oftentimes I get, I have to talk through budget and needs and all that stuff to do what I do. And oftentimes the expectations or goals are like, I get to be very honest because, again, before I set my partners up for success, I need to know all these things. And my answer or my question is usually like, where did these come from? Like, those don't seem rooted in like math or like realistic
Or
math.
reality.
A lot of times the answer is like, yeah, they were given to us by the CEO, or like that's just what they are. Like we all came up with them. I'm like, right, but like where'd they come from? Like you just picked arbitrary things. So I think there's a lot of stuff. I think it comes from the top, and you have to have a good relationship with your CEO and your peers. It's also probably, I think I see now more than ever, people are scared to experiment a little bit. To your point, like if you can't tie it 100% back to attribution or easily attributable, I guess I should say, people are scared to experiment with like new things, because you're also, you want your company to be successful. You also want to keep a job. So it is not easy.
I think the best thing I've done recently is create the tightest relationship I've ever had with finance. I have a really strong finance partner who actually is very curious and has learned a lot with me together. And that has helped me to feel very comfortable setting realistic expectations and being very, very blunt and honest about what I think is possible and what would be definitely a stretch. If you can't do that with your team and your CEO and your finance partners, you may not be in the right place, in my opinion, because marketers continually get set up for failure when they don't have partners within the organization that listen. And part of that is educating, your job to educate and partner and be a good partner to your sales team and your CX team, your finance team, your leadership team. And part of that is, finding folks that you can work with who are going to listen and learn with you. And I've been in both situations, and having partners who actually listen and aren't going to back you into a number that's impossible is so important for the success of any marketing leader.
Yeah, it is always good to make friends with the people with the money, I find as well. So not bad advice. You want to do your positive agency experience or your negative agency experience first? I always give the option here. End positive or start positive?
Let's end positive.
Okay, well, tell me about a shitty agency experience you've had in the past.
Okay, so I had a really, really bad agency experience recently.
Recently, even better.
Yes. I am still semi-traumatized from this experience. You get the fresh trauma. So let me just gather myself here because I don't want to get too dramatic.
I was going to say this is a safe space at the moment. I didn't realize we were rehashing such a terrible one. This is a good one to kick off the year. This is even better. Now I'm eager to hear.
Okay, so I think most marketers will understand when I say that anything relating to site migration in general is just tough, right? And it's hard to find an agency partner that's actually very good at this. And by that, I mean, super organized, highly communicative, very thoughtful, and also has really strong, experienced folks. And I brought in an agency to migrate us from WordPress to Webflow. We've got a really big site, super complicated. It's got a lot of SEO content on it. And I was looking for an agency that had a lot of experience with this because I did not have internal expertise to help with it. And I think pretty much everything that could go wrong did. But the worst part was that we ended up with inexperienced folks on the technical side who are way in over their head, really poor communication, lack of project management. In fact, our project manager went completely AWOL. And what ended up happening is this agency cut our website over during a product launch without telling us, unplanned,
Fun
and then broke the
stuff.
entire website for an entire day. Like broke my demo requests, like flow, broke everything. Site
This
went
is a
black.
this is a good one.
Yeah. So, and I could not reach the people on my team or the leadership at this agency for many hours while this was transpiring. So, I guess, this is kind of a horror story in terms of I've never just experienced anything like this before, but my website is basically my livelihood. It's how people get in the door to talk to my company and to interact with us and to it's how all of my pipeline flows in. And so I think it's pretty traumatizing to have something this catastrophic happen for this long length of time, and it just completely you're destroyed and eroded trust instantly.
That's not good at all. I'm curious. In retrospect, looking back, is it shocking? Like it was a completely different story before you hired them and you were super comfortable and confident? Or like, is there anything now looking back, red flag that you're like, oh, I shouldn't have trusted them, or like I didn't seem as confident as I should be, that sort of stuff? Or yeah, like how did that
I
unfold, I
think
guess?
this was an interesting case because it was actually an agency that someone on my team had used before and had a good experience with. And so that's why we brought them in. And I think in hindsight, I should have caught that the project manager was not project managing much earlier than I did and called it out and tried to make sure that we got back on track because it derailed from there with the, you know, folks who were trying to do the technical work, trying to also leave the project when they didn't know how to do that. And I think, my general take on this is that they overextended themselves. They had a, very junior team working on something that was very important for us. And the leadership was probably also overextended. So they weren't keeping an eye and then they weren't responsive when something really went bad. But I don't know, this is a tough one. I'm not sure there was no really big red flag that would have told me something could go this wrong.
Sorry to hear that. This is a case for coming to You Should Talk To next. It's
Yeah.
impossible for it to go wrong. No, I'm kidding. But also, if it makes you feel any better, site migrations make everybody sick to their stomach, and I actually am
Yeah.
helping two brands in the B2B space with site migrations now, and I feel like after this, I need to make like a couple phone calls to be like, is everybody sure they know what they're doing on this side
Yeah.
of the
I do
ball?
think you
Because
got to keep a close tabs on
I'm
everyone
like, I
while
need
you're
to go
going through
real
this.
quick. I'm gonna throw up. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, those no, there are very few things that stuff like that. Truthfully, I joke like with content, for example, like anybody can create content, right? So when you're hiring a content agency, like I think you think of it differently, right? You might not create great content, but like I can write, I could draw. It's going to be a shitty picture, but I'm going to come up with something. With stuff like that, it is 99.9% trust because it's a foreign language. Like I couldn't even tell you the intricacies of WordPress and and Webflow to know what needs to be looked at to do the
Exactly.
migration itself, right? So it is so trust driven of, yeah, we know exactly what we are doing and you can put your mind at ease. So for stuff like that, trust erodes even faster than anything in the world because it is like a foreign language essentially.
That. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard for someone in my role also to figure out how to troubleshoot or problem solve when something goes wrong because we don't know how to get in there always.
Let's talk about a positive agency experience then, since we've gotten your trauma out of the way. Has there been any
Okay.
positive ones of late or in the
Yes.
past?
So there's actually so far a happy ending to this story.
Good.
went back through a bunch of my trusted peers and friends and resources and found an agency that had been recommended by quite a few people who had gone through the exact site migration that we were trying to pull off. And I talked to probably three or four different folks and realized that what was most important to me was like straight shooter, someone who was cool if I was gonna, just real talk with them. There wasn't a lot of like formal sort of old school agency talk and structure that was going to make it difficult for us to move very quickly once we agreed on the scope, and found someone who is like small shop but very flexible, very real, like, and talked through all of my fears and was willing to really meet me where I was, but also had a lot of really, really excellent recommendations from folks who had done just exactly what I was trying to do. And so far, that has been night and day experience in terms of they are communicative. They are, it's like I'm working with a friend or a group of friends. They are in Slack with us. They're highly responsive. They're very thoughtful. They're catching things before I do. And they work very, very quickly. And it's like a perfect extension of the team. So I think, I am, subjectively a case where I don't want to work with an agency. I don't want to feel like that. I want to work with people who are an extension of my team who I can have a conversation with and pick up the phone and call and, just have a normal dynamic with. I find that a lot of agencies put these weird frameworks and structures where it's like, you have to jump through hoops to even have a conversation with someone to get something done. And for most startups, which is where I spend most of my time, that does not work. It just doesn't translate. But yeah, this has been a very, very good experience. And all of the agencies I found that work well with our team work this way. They can hop in Slack, they can go back and forth. They're responsive, communicative, like there's a vibe, like they're just part of the team and they're optimizing for speed, but carefully.
That's great. A happy ending. Usually there's not a happy ending. So
yeah.
What are you most excited about in the marketing world at the moment?
I'm excited for this, what seems like sort of this resurgence of focus on personalized marketing. And I think this collective desire to do better as marketers. We're seeing a lot of shifts in the way that attribution happens and the way we track and the way that we use AI and the way that we automate things. And I'm really excited about this general sort of feels like tilt toward the more personal, the more thoughtful, the more useful side of marketing. I think there's also in that this potential for brand or creative marketing to sort of start coming back. I feel like over the last year in this weird market with these really tight goals and pressure on marketing, like you said earlier, people have started to fear experimentation and brand budgets got cut and marketers have been asked to do sort of demand capture without any of the other pieces that holistically make that work. So I'm starting to see brands do some really cool stuff that is just purely based on would this resonate and be useful or interesting to the customer or the buyer instead of trying to architect something near term to capture a certain number of demo requests. And that's what makes me excited is like people focused, customer and human focused marketing. And I'm also seeing marketers focus more on the full funnel. So thinking through not just new business, but also how do we better serve our customers and expand them and retain them and keep them happy. And that's the kind of marketer I am. I'm thinking about the whole buyer journey. And I think all of us should be. So that's also happiness making for me.
Yeah, when everybody else is scared, it's probably an awesome time to take some risks if you can stomach it or get buy-in from your CFO or CEO. I am with you. On the other side, what keeps you up at night from a marketing standpoint besides site migrations?
Oh gosh. What keeps me up, I think, is really that tension between the near and the long term. How do I balance my time to make sure that I'm taking care of what we need as a business to keep our machines running and taking care of my team in the near term as well, while being able to dedicate time and thought to the long term and more strategic thinking. That's probably, I think, what keeps most marketers up at night is that balance. Um, and then just, figuring out how to balance the sprints that we have to run as marketers, where we're oftentimes really building towards something that has to be done fairly quickly, and then making sure that my team gets a breath and a reset often enough so that we're not burning people out long term, because uh, it is a marathon, right? We're all trying to get to a long-term goal at some point, but marketing is very like run the race, kick out the product or kick out the announcement, or launch the campaign or launch the event series, and then you got to take a breath. And I think about this constantly, making sure that my team is getting that adrenaline rush of like celebrating kicking something out, and then getting the rest and the recharge and energy battery fill up that they need, and that I am too.
You should gift them all like a spa day or a spa treatment with Sendoso.
We do a lot of gifting.
That's good.
Surprise, surprise.
I was going to say, now that makes total sense. And I hear that often. Most marketers I know don't sleep well. So I hope everybody gets some sleep. But we will wrap up here with a couple fun ones that I like to ask everybody. What was your very first job?
Very first job was babysitting two little boys. I was not a good babysitter, and one of them would always climb a really tall tree and not come down. And so we had to end up swapping me for my sister as their babysitter because they liked her better.
That is fair. I was going to say, I always ask, do you take anything from that experience to your current role? You're babysitting the team and taking risks, climbing a tree, I assume?
You know, the reason they didn't like me,
Yeah, I was
just
going
to
to say.
admit this,
Yeah, I can.
is that I didn't let them win all the time when we played games. And
You challenge people. That's great.
I felt like it's important to not let them win every single game,
Understood.
and that made them upset. And my sister decided that they should win every single game because that made life easier. So I think there's lessons on both sides, right?
I totally agree. What would your final meal be?
My final meal has not changed over time. It would be a Dungeness crab roll, really crispy fries, nice glass of champagne, and then probably some sort of chocolate dessert of some kind.
Okay. Who is somebody who inspires you personally or professionally?
I'm inspired by so many of the marketers and leaders that I am lucky enough to come into contact with and have in my community. I've really been loving what Alina is doing at Chili Piper, and co-founder over there, and her whole team, honestly. I love how raw she is and unfiltered she is, and that she not only shares her successes and builds in public, but also talks about the stuff that they've messed up or that she's learned from failing at. I think we can use a lot more of failing in public. I'm trying to practice it as well, but there's a lot of people just talking about how well they've done at something or how many millions they've made or how kick-ass their team is, and that's awesome. But a lot of us fail every day, and we could help each other avoid pitfalls by just talking about it. So I love that. I love that she does that openly, and I'm also really inspired by the women, Leslie Greenwood and Melissa Moody, who founded Wednesday Women, which I just got to be a part of their first dinner. Just brought a bunch of hugely inspiring women together in one room for no purpose other than to help each other. And I think we could do a lot more of that too, as a community.
That's great. Yeah, I think my shtick on LinkedIn is around consistency, and even with failing and stuff, I think people underestimate, like, even the people who are doing incredibly well, how long it takes and like how much stuff
Yeah.
they went through over time. Like I talk about it all the time. Stuff that's coming to fruition for me in present day 24 is from like 10 years ago that I unknowingly did, or like people I met that I've been nice to and have been nice to me along the way. So no, I'm with you. I prefer seeing the realer, more real stuff on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, it's helpful to just learn from people as people. I'm less a fan of the, classic like attention grabber LinkedIn posts that doesn't actually mean anything.
I'm with you. Less of that in 2024, I hope. But no, we
Please.
appreciate you joining us today. For anybody who wants to find you and not pitch slap you, you can check out Kacie on LinkedIn. And I assume sendoso.com is not a bad place for people to check out if they are interested in learning more. But thank you very much for joining. And yeah, we will chat with you soon.
Pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for checking out this episode of You Should Talk To. This show is brought to you by the company with the same name, You Should Talk To, a company that helps marketing leaders find the right agency or freelancer for their situation. If you enjoyed what you learned in this episode, make sure to follow You Should Talk To wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or visit youshouldtalkto.com for more information.